What's up, guys? Welcome back to FitBodySecrets, where my mission is to bring you guys inspiration, motivation, and a ton of tips to help you guys all on your fitness journey. And today's topic, just feel before I go into today's topic, if I have it's been really hard. I'm just going to start by saying this is really hard to talk about. um, it was hard to even decide to come up with a topic today and feel really good and authentic about bringing any sort of nutritional value to the CrossFit space because I feel like right now everybody in the CrossFit space is mourning. And it's been Thursday, Friday, Thursday, but 5 days of what has transpired over the weekend being on my mind as well. And it would be really hard for me to go into this episode without putting it out there that I have very strong feelings about everything that happened this weekend and feel I don't know how to feel about anything. I've said a lot of things, thought a lot of things, and I'm kind of keeping things a little bit quiet right now before expressing everything because I do want to um, wait and give CrossFit as a brand the opportunity to hopefully come out with more details because right now I'm just completely shocked at what has happened. And I wanted to start with that because it is heavy on my heart. And what happened this weekend was a complete tragedy. And in my opinion, I think the opinions of everybody's very preventable. But it's one of those things that you don't want to place blame until you know, and blame isn't going to change what happened. And so I just wanted to start with that because it would be unauthentic for me not to say that it's been on my mind. And in fact, I almost decided to make an entire episode talking about it, but um, I want to honor Lazar and his family and know that I didn't know him personally. And I am not a person that needs to speak up for a situation that I was not a direct uh, part of. And again, as I said, I would like to wait and give CrossFit the opportunity to come out with more details before I can kind of disclose my full opinion. Because it, I will say this: the one thing about what has happened this weekend is, and I've been speaking a lot about it on my Instagram stories, is like it was just a really big reminder of how unbelievably powerful the CrossFit community is outside of the actual games, outside of the affiliate, like the connection that is shared between CrossFitters across the globe. Because people that had no idea, didn't even watch the games, everybody, so it was just really an interesting feeling to know that I am a part of that community, regardless of the actual affiliation or brand that is the one that runs it all. So I wanted to start with that because it was heavy on my heart. And I am not going to turn this episode into a discussion about that. As I said, I probably will discuss it more in a previous episode, or in a future episode. But I just feel like even right now talking, it's been very hard to not be distracted by this all weekend. I mean, when you're watching the games, I was thinking about it, going through social media, it's all over the place. It's hard not to think about it. We go to the gym, I'm talking about it. Just thinking about the situation and how that could have been anybody, So very difficult times for CrossFit. But it doesn't change the fact that today we are all alive and we should all be so grateful for that. And we're going to lighten things up a little bit and maybe, probably keep them a little bit serious because today's episode is going to be a little bit more of like a tough love type of an episode for you all. One to help you guys all understand one of the things y'all are missing from your journey in CrossFit, and I see this. In fact, I'm going to talk about my own personal story. At one point, I was underutilizing this very important muscle group, and it was definitely causing me to change my body in a way that I wasn't happy with. And I know that CrossFit isn't all about aesthetics, right? One of the reasons I got into CrossFit was because I liked the fact that when I went to the gym, I was no longer focusing on, am I burning enough calories, or how are these exercises going to change my body? It was more like, dang, I did 21 unbroken thrusters today, or I did my first pull up, or I was able to walk on my hands for the first time. Like that became exciting for me to show up, and I would look at the workouts and get excited. Um, and we don't really train muscle groups in CrossFit, right? We don't, but this is one that's going to hit home for a lot of you guys. I actually made a Instagram Instagram post today, and it was a quote that I had thought about this morning. And I wrote, at some point, I realized I was trapped in a body that didn't match the person I knew myself to be. My reflection didn't align with my inner dialogue, and I knew something had to change. And I say that because that was really how it happened for me when I decided to change. And that's why I'm going to kind of the hook, or whatever you want to call it, my title, what they call it, clickbait. You guys might be thinking that I'm going to be talking about how to spot reduce belly fat, how to get rid of the cellulite on your legs, how to, make your arms look more toned, whatever it is you're looking for, how to get a bigger chest. And that's not what we're going to be talking about today, because as I said, in CrossFit, we typically don't train muscle groups. We train movement patterns. But when it comes to the missing link for a lot of you guys in your journey, in terms of, hey, I work out hard, but I'm actually not seeing the results that I want to see, or I'm putting in the effort in the gym, but I can't figure out how to lose weight. And, a lot of people that come into the CrossFit community are overweight, obese, and do need to change. And, or maybe you have been something that's been active for a long time, but you're missing some things to change your body to feel more confident in yourself. So I don't care if you have 5 or 10 pounds to lose, or if you have 50 or 100 pounds to lose, these same principles are going to apply to you guys. And we're going to talk about it today. And we're going to hopefully give you guys some tips. I'm talking about we, like we're talking, like listen to me. I sound crazy. I'm one person. Give you guys some tips to hopefully help you be successful in changing these things. So the most underutilized or undertrained muscle group in CrossFit, and this is really in any other fitness world. You're working hard, you're busting your ass, you are neglecting the importance of, well, not neglecting it altogether, because you know it, of self-control and willpower. And today, that's what we're going to be talking about. And it's a touchy subject, because I feel like in one side of my head, when I hear the words self-control, discipline, and willpower, I have like a picture of like Jocko, like screaming at somebody who's like about to eat a cookie. And he's like, put the cookie down. And he's like screaming at them. And like the person's like, oh my God, I just want to be able to eat the cookie. And like, it can feel like this, oh my God, like this is so harsh, right? Like it can feel almost like in a way where you feel like, inferior, right? And that's not, I think the biggest misconception is that self-control and discipline and willpower are these like tough, like these really tough people, and they're like, really resilient. It's not really the case. But the reality is those traits need to be trained. And for a lot of people, they don't know how to train them, and they're utilizing them and abusing them entirely too much. And it's why they struggle, and I mean, I'm going to, how many of you guys can relate to like, I know what I got to do. I just got to do it. Right. Like it's not always that simple. I know if I just eat better, I would be fine. I know if I could just stop, stopping at that coffee shop every morning, everything would be good. But that coffee tastes so damn good, you don't want to give it up. So like it's understanding that there needs to be a training stimulus, just like everything else you guys train in CrossFit, on these two specific traits. And that's why I'm calling them a muscle group, because they are something that needs to be trained. And I'm going to kind of keep them coupled together, self-control, willpower, because they're kind of one in each other, right? Like if somebody has willpower, they probably have some pretty good self-control. But this is truly the key to any goal you want to achieve, whether it's related to your body composition, losing weight, whether it's, working towards developing skills, whatever it is you're looking to do, you are going to need to practice these things, because guess what? When you're practicing a new skill, it's super fucking frustrating, right? Like we've all been there. Like, how long did it take me to get a muscle up? How long did it take me to get a handstand walk? I fell and I failed over and over again. And I watched other people and I was like so jealous and I would be the last one done in a workout, but I kept persevering. And it's the same thing in everything else in life, right? Even outside of the gym, there might be things that you're trying to achieve that you just feel like it's really hard, right? It requires self control, willpower, and discipline. But these things are very, very, very important in order for you guys to see results. Like you cannot achieve fat loss without self control, willpower, discipline, hands down. Doesn't matter. And you cannot maintain fat loss without those traits. So anybody that's telling you that you don't need those things is lying to you. Fat loss is not easy. Maintaining fat loss is not easy. It becomes easier over time, just like everything else that you do. You first start CrossFit, it feels really scary. You're scared to even walk in the door. You walk in the door, you get okay. You do your first workout, that was scary. It was really hard. And you finish it, you're proud. But then you go home and you're sore and you're like, oh shit, I got to go back tomorrow. Right? Like, but over time, all that stuff gets easier. It's the same thing with nutrition and learning how to make this stuff easier. And I'm going to really target this towards nutrition because my goal for you guys is to understand that in order for you to lose weight, lose fat, get leaner, get stronger, get fitter, nutrition is at the foundation of CrossFit's methodology. If you are not dialing in your nutrition, you are missing the biggest thing that is going to factor into your results, regardless of what your goals are. Regardless, if you're going to, and maybe you don't have any goals, maybe you just go to CrossFit because you like it. That's fine too. But then this episode probably isn't for you. You're probably like, I'm fine just being the way that I am. And that's okay. But if you are looking to make changes and maybe it's just you want to feel better, nutrition's the foundation. You've got to have these things dialed in. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about some things that we can do to help make self-control and what makes self-control and willpower easier and harder. And the first thing that I want to talk about is environment. Let's just talk about CrossFit, right? Why does CrossFit class feel so awesome? Because you're doing workouts with other people, right? It's a lot easier to push yourself when you're in a class of other people pushing themselves rather than when you're at home. Everybody knows that we work out a little bit harder when we are being pushed by other people. When you're around other people that value the same things as you, it makes it a lot easier for you. And I like so for instance, you're the one trying to dial in your nutrition and you show up at a dinner table and everybody else is also dialing in their nutrition. So everybody's making healthy choices. And it's easier, right? Because everybody else around you is doing it. Now put yourself at a table where everybody's eating whatever they want. Now you suddenly are like, I'm the only one, I'm singled out. It makes it that much more difficult. So your environment plays a huge factor in your food decisions. And one of the hardest things I think that a lot of people deal with is that there's so much junk food around. And it's not all your fault. It's you've got kids, you've got a husband, you've got entertaining people, you've got all this shit just in your cabinets, in your kitchen, at your, whatever you want to have, you can go grab whatever you want. It's convenient, right? It's easy for you to choose the wrong things. Again, environment is like I said, you go out to dinner and your husband's like wants to like eat whatever he wants and it's making it harder for you. He brings home pizza and you're like, well, I'm trying to clean up my diet. I don't want to eat pizza. And there can be levels of maybe some stress when you're talking to loved ones about the changes that you want to make. Your environment plays a huge factor. At work, people at work are ordering in, or there's candy in the office desk. Like all of these things are going to make it easier for you to default to the wrong things, right? So the first thing is we have to look at changing our environment. And we can't always control everything in our environment. We can't obviously tell other people at work to stop ordering out. We can't do those things. We can't, make those decisions for other people. But we can work to improve the quality of the food that we have available to us and make those things more convenient. And I'm going to be honest, guys, and this is true. Like, if you have a family and you have kids And I know that there's picky eaters out there. Trust me, I was a picky ass eater. Okay, but if I go back in time and I think about it, is why do we have to have so much junk food for our kids? Like, I get it. Kids are, but they don't need to have five different types of sugary snacks in the cabinet, five different types of chips, different juices. Like, I think that the more you're giving yourself these reasons to have this food at home, you're making it more difficult for yourself, but also for your kids. So making healthier choices available to your entire family should be the priority. And so I do think that taking inventory of the junk food in your house and getting it out is important. Am I saying to never have these things? No, I'm simply saying make it more difficult for you to have those things. This way, you don't have the need to go grab, or you don't have access to those things when you want them all of a sudden. You're craving chips, it's 2 o'clock. I didn't buy chips. Guess I don't have chips. Guess I'm gonna have something else. Right. So we want to make sure we don't have those things easily accessible to us. And also, like I said, making sure that we have the healthier options available, making sure that we have replacements for them. I'm not saying to remove all of your snacks, but like maybe rather than having tortilla chips, you're having air pop popcorn. Maybe there's little things that you can change to make things a little bit easier for you to still have snacks, and for your kids, having fresh fruit and things like that, so that you're not just eating the junk food. Um, this is going to be really helpful as well, is actually having an open conversation with the people around you. And no, I'm not telling you to tell your 5-year-old kid that you're on a diet to lose weight. What I am saying is it's important to make sure that you are making the people that are around you aware of the lifestyle changes that you're trying to make. And when you are talking to children about the things that you're doing, not to position it as mommy's trying to lose weight or daddy's got to get rid of his gut, making it into a way as we are trying to eat healthier, we are developing better habits. Teaching kids the importance of eating healthy is important. This wasn't even an episode about teaching kids; it's about self-control and willpower. But it's important for kids to know, like, what the important foods to be eating are. But having a conversation with your husband, your wife, whoever is supporting you, and getting them to understand why you're making the changes that you're making and what you want to do, because that's going to put it out there. It's no longer this elephant in the room that you're having to always explain to yourself. Okay. And the second piece of environment that I kind of want to talk about is convenience, right? I've talked about how, like, it's easy to grab shitty food when shitty food's all around you. This stuff makes self-control and willpower so hard, because you're literally putting something in front, you're dangling the carrot in front of you every single day, every single moment. So making it more convenient for you to have foods that you enjoy on hand that can replace those foods, right? The more convenient we make it, it's going to be easy. Make it the easy option. The harder an option is, the more resistance, the less likely you're going to be to choose it. So, for example, if it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon and I've been busting my ass all day, and I have the choice of the pizza that my husband brought home or sitting in front of a stove and cooking dinner, and I'm starving, which one am I probably going to choose? Right? Like, so it's important to realize that you have to make it convenient for you to be able to make those changes. So I would recommend making sure that you have a prep, you have some food prepped. Those things are what require the or the willpower. Like, you have to be able to say, all right, I'm going to take time to plan so that later my decisions are easier. It's going to make practicing self-control and willpower easier, because now you don't have to think about it in a moment where you're being tested. Like, the worst thing you can do is be tested when you have no, like, energy left. You've got nothing left to fight with. So it's really important to take time to make things convenient for you. Okay. Um, I think that the main thing is, and this is, so if you're a CrossFitter, you probably relate to this. If you work out first thing in the morning, if you're like me, you lay out your clothes the night beforehand. You have everything ready to go. So in the morning when you wake up, it's like, I got to put my clothes on and I got to get to the gym. You're not thinking about, like, what am I going to wear? Blah, 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 blah. The less thinking you have to do, the more likely you are to just go to the gym and do it. The more thinking you have to do, the less likely you are to do it. And this happens with people in the afternoons. A lot of times when clients of mine save their workout for later in the day, they struggle to get it in, because now they've literally been exhausted all day with every other decision, that the last thing that they want to do is make the decision to go to the gym and work out. They're like, oh my God, I don't want to go to the gym right now. I'm so tired. So it's really important to try and think about always kind of planning ahead and setting yourself up for success. And it doesn't have to require a bunch of time and effort. It just needs to require practice and planning. Okay. So like, you don't have to sit there and cook in front of the kitchen or cook for 2 hours, right? I can simply say, all right, I know that I have a really busy week. I'm going to pre-order some pre-cooked chicken, and I'm going to be able to throw quick and easy meals together, like, and making fun, easy meals. That's one of the things I teach my clients. Like this week, one of the recipes I put out was a buffalo chicken wrap. Takes literally less than 5 minutes to make. And one of my clients was like, oh my God, that was so good and so filling. And, it's just learning those little things. That's what I do with my clients. Okay. I mentioned the plan, which is important, because it really does remove the decision fatigue. And this comes down to everything, not just with you making more healthy options convenient for you at home, but also when we're thinking about things like situations where you might be presented with opportunities to choose. Having a plan and sticking to it is so important. Like, what do you want to get out of it? It's funny because I will get clients that are like so gung ho and ready to get started on their fitness journey. And they're like, oh, I'm going to town and like, I'm going to like track all my food and I'm going to be like so disciplined. And I'm like, okay. And typically I tell them like, you don't have to do that, right? You're on vacation. But it's just funny because that plan I know is going to go out the window, but have a realistic plan that you can actually stick to. That's really important because unless you have to think, the easier it is. So for example, going out to eat. Okay. If you go to Cheesecake Factory and you open up that menu and you haven't had a thought about what you feel like having that night, you're going to be like system overload. And then the thought of thinking about calories and protein and healthy, you're just going to be like, this is too much. I'm going to choose whatever I want because I can't think about this right now. But if instead earlier in the day, you're like, oh, what do I feel like having? And then you start thinking about, I wonder if they have something like this there. And then you pull up the menu, like, oh, they do have that there. And now you have a plan, right? So you go into each day with a plan. This way, when you're in that moment, you don't have to think about it. It just makes everything so much easier. And I think that the next thing to kind of talk about with these changes is that, like, it's going to take time, right? So kind of talking about training these muscle groups is kind of what I want to shift into. Muscle groups, self-control and willpower is it's going to take time, right? So like just like every other thing you do in the gym, whether it's learning a skill, whether it's getting stronger, squatting more weight, like it takes time. You don't just develop these skills and this strength overnight. You got to put in lots of work at lower percentages, at modifications, and then over time things build. It's going to be the same thing here. And this is where I think the biggest problem lays. And most people, when it comes to self-control, willpower, discipline, they go all in. I'm going to do the sugar detox. I'm going on this Whole30 challenge. I'm removing all carbs from my diet. I'm going carnivore. I'm doing this extreme change. And what happens is self-control is much harder to practice the harder you work. Willpower is finite and you will break down. And this is why it's so hard for people to maintain fat loss and diet changes, because they do things in such an extreme way rather than a progressive way, rather than looking at the minimum effective dose and seeing what they can manage. They go the hardest way. Imagine me telling you that I want you to run a mile, but I want you to run a mile in 6 minutes, and you can't even run a mile without stopping. Like, would that not stress you the fuck out? You're like, that's impossible, right? It's the same thing here. It takes so long to change habits. In fact, there used to be this whole like 21 days to break a habit. Studies have showed it actually takes the average of 63 days to break a habit, with most people seeing the best habit changes at around the 128-day mark. So it takes a lot longer. And if you think about it this way, if you've been living, eating, and your habits have been essentially an accumulation of the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years, it's not going to change in 6 weeks. it's literally just a tip of the iceberg. And you've got to keep going with that stuff. And it takes time. You're going to have a constant awareness about what you're doing. So if you really want to know the truth about making the biggest changes with your body composition, with your health, with your performance, with really making the commitment to changing your nutrition, you have to realize that self-control, discipline, and willpower are a necessity. And they are things that need to be trained and practiced that will help you over time. So if you're looking for the keys to train those things, you need to make sure that you are committed to these things. Number one, it takes time. So don't rush the process. Focus on one or two things. And I think that that comes down to looking at what you can change in your environment. That is the easiest thing to change that will help make you practicing self-control and willpower that much easier. And it might simply be looking in the cupboard and saying, we have entirely too much shit food in this cupboard, and throwing it away. And don't be afraid of wasting food. Give it to your neighbor, do something else. Whatever it is, make it more convenient for you. This way, once that happens, now you don't have to practice so much willpower. Add in things that can replace those things. Okay. So number one, you need patience. Number two, commit to making small changes that you can actually stick to. And they should be challenging. It should give you some level of stress. That's part of it. Just like in training, right? Like you're going to work hard, but you know that like you're going to adapt to that. Okay. And then three, stay committed. Like you've got to stay committed to understand that self-control, discipline, and willpower are not easy. And we all struggle in different areas of our life to practice them, especially when we have so many other things going on. But I know that if you train these things, you will get so much fitter. You will get so much better. Everything will feel so much easier to you. So that's my thoughts today for my CrossFitters out there trying to make changes. Focus on practicing and training your self-control and willpower rather than burning it out all the time.